This UCSD TV program is presented by University of California Television. Like what you learn? Visit our website or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the latest programs.
Exploring the microbiome of pine trees, the unique relationship of oceans to Mediterranean climate zones, studying the social life of bluebirds. But first, how the Engelkirk Structural Engineering Center will serve natural hazards research, and a fantastic frozen flying saucer? All on this edition of On Beyond.
The NHERI experimental facility at the University of California, San Diego will provide large-scale, high-performance experimental infrastructure to advance the science and practice of natural hazards engineering and to educate the future generation of engineers. Only 10 miles east of the UC San Diego campus and only 16 miles northeast of San Diego International Airport, NHERI at UC San Diego is easily accessible to researchers and educators from around the world. Research conducted at the NHERI at UC San Diego experimental facility will lead to improved design codes and construction standards, validated computational simulation models, and accurate decision-making tools necessary to build and maintain sustainable and disaster-resilient communities. To accomplish this, UC San Diego will provide the large, high-performance outdoor shake table, referred to as LH Post, to the NHERI network. The LH Post was developed under the NSF NEAS program. The LH Post enables real-time dynamic testing of large to full-scale structural and non-structural systems to understand the performance of buildings, critical facilities, and bridges. It can also accommodate large soil boxes to investigate soil structure interaction problems. The platen, which is the part of the shake table that moves, is surrounded by a reinforced concrete reaction mass. Installed here on the table is a full-scale electrical substation consisting of poles and insulators, some of which are equipped with spring dampers at the base supporting 500 kilovolt transmission lines. UC San Diego will also make available a California Department of Transportation-funded Soil Structure Interaction Facility, referred to as the SSI facility, consisting of 2 large refillable soil pits separated by a reaction wall. Other features of the NHERI facility include a hydraulic power and control system building, construction support equipment, meeting and office space, and a machine shop. The facility provides extensive space for construction and ease of access. Heavy test specimens relative to the table's 2,000-ton payload capacity are built directly on the platen. As a Year 1 upgrade to the facility, the construction of a heavy-duty staging area has been proposed to maximize the shake table's throughput. Small to moderate-sized specimens weighing up to 100 tons would be constructed on the staging area and then lifted onto the LH Post. The hydraulic power system is shared by all test equipment at the NHERI site. It consists of 2 hydraulic pumps, a surge tank, an accumulator bank, a pressure-regulating valve, and a hydraulic piping system. A cooling tower and electrical power substation are located outside the building. A service tunnel connects the hydraulic power and control system building to the LH Post. Under the table, surrounded by the reinforced concrete reaction mass, one can see the infrastructure that supports the 25 by 40-foot honeycomb steel platen. The LH Post is driven in its longitudinal direction by a set of 2 servo-controlled dynamic horizontal actuators, one at each end of the platen. During testing, the shake table slides over 6 vertical actuators, currently used as active hydrostatic bearings. 2 nitrogen-filled struts connected to the bottom of the reaction mass compress the platen against the vertical bearings to control overturning of the platen by the sway of the specimen. The LH post currently performs as a single-axis shake table. However, the facility was built for easy upgrade to 6 degrees of freedom. Upgrading to this capacity will not require any structural modifications, but only the acquisition of additional servo-hydraulic equipment. In its current single degree of freedom configuration, the performance specifications of the LH post are significantly higher than any other shake table in the United States. Of the 25 research projects performed on the LH post thus far, only 2 could have been performed on the second largest shake table in the U.S. Furthermore, at least 4 projects could not have been performed on the largest shake table in the world in Japan due to height restrictions. Because of its full-scale, system-level dynamic testing capabilities, use of the LH post circumvents the problems related to inaccurate boundary conditions and scaling. An additional distinguishing feature is its payload capacity of 2,000 tons, allowing the LH post to be used in combination with large soil boxes. This enables the seismic testing of geotechnical systems, such as underground structures, bridge abutments, and earth-retaining walls. The heaviest specimen tested on the LH post thus far weighed 1,000 tons, representing only half of the table payload capacity. The LH post is particularly useful for conducting tests of components and systems at large or at full scale when material constitutive relationships show sensitivity to size or strain rate effects, or when off-the-shelf commercial products are incorporated as primary components in the test. In this test, 2 bridge columns seen from the top of the large confinement soil box are responding to an earthquake by having their footings rock on the soil compacted inside the soil box. The soil box was outfitted with a bladder, and water was added to the soil to simulate realistic conditions where the water table sits just below the foundation of a structure. This test of a retaining wall with soil backfill performed in a laminar soil shear box allowed researchers to investigate the soil failure mechanism behind the wall at full scale. This half-scale landmark experiment tested a 4-story building specimen equipped with an innovative floor anchorage system that reduced the inertial forces during an earthquake, minimizing structural damage and maintaining a plumb, vertical configuration of the building at the end of the earthquake. This seismic test of a half-scale precast concrete parking garage investigated the complex system behavioral modes of precast concrete building structures and especially their floor diaphragms. This allowed for the development of high-fidelity nonlinear finite element models, which were used to develop seismic design provisions that will be incorporated in the 2016 edition of the ASCE 7 standards. This experiment also illustrates the possibility of testing structural specimens with a footprint significantly larger than the size of the shake table platen, using outrigger arms sliding on low-friction bearings. This test of a wind turbine standing over 100 feet tall demonstrates how this outdoor facility with no overhead height limitations enables the testing of taller specimens than is possible on any other shake table in the U.S. and the world. This full-scale 4-story wood frame building provided a system-level test to validate the effectiveness of building evaluation and retrofit techniques that are currently being implemented in more than 6,000 buildings as part of San Francisco's mandatory soft-story retrofit program. Because of the unique capabilities that the LH post and SSI facilities offer, strong industry engagement is typical of many test programs at the facility. The involvement of practicing engineers and code-writing committees who play a key role in using and disseminating the research findings to industry will transform the state of practice. The impact of NHERI at UC San Diego will extend beyond engineering practice. We will provide enhanced outreach activities in an effort to recruit K-12 students from diverse backgrounds into STEM fields. The research, education, and community outreach plans at NHERI at UC San Diego experimental facilities will ensure that NHERI will play a significant role in educating the next generation of structural engineers, with special emphasis on characterization and mitigation of natural hazards such as earthquakes, hurricanes, and tornadoes.
Hey, kitties!
Is it time to eat?
No! But my friend Boaz can make you float in air.
No way! How?
Like this. It's called quantum levitation. He just needs a super cold superconductor and a super strong magnet.
Whoa! Cool! You're right about that. My butt's frozen. So what good is this?
How about for taking a ride?
Whoa, smart puppy! Help! How do you get off this thing? Help! Help! Whoa! Whoa! This would be more fun if my butt weren't so cold. Help!
So I do research up here in Yosemite about bacterial endophytes which live inside of conifers. You may be wondering, what in the world is an endophyte? Well, if you break down the name, endo, inside, phyte, plant. So they're bacteria or fungi that live inside plants. Now, the interesting thing about them, why study bacteria and fungi living inside plants? Well, it's because of the beneficial properties they can provide to the plants they live inside, such as, which I'm most interested, growth promotion, but also in addition, protection from disease, insect pests, and also drought. All right, so once I'm safely in my sterile equipment, then I can choose buds and needles to sample. So what we're going for is healthy tissue because endophytes don't cause disease. And I'll sample just a very small portion of the needles and buds because I'm interested, are there different bacteria in the needles as compared to the bud? I can study how does the relationship between endophytes and conifers develop over time. For example, an established tree like this one may need more bacteria to help it survive drought and disease, whereas a young tree, who knows, maybe they need more growth promoters. But I guess I'll find that out as the study progresses. One of the main reasons I chose Tuolumne Meadows as my study site is the amazing proximity to UC Merced. Also, there's a great cooperation between UC Merced and the Natural Reserve System that allows me to have access to this wonderful research site. I also have use of the Sierra Nevada Research Institute's field station if I need to camp over, and I have other study sites in the area, so that helps me have access to those. But mostly I get to backpack, which is awesome. Once I have sterile samples, then I can take them home to the lab. So we start off with crushed up plant material pressed onto an agar surface. As I use different amounts of crushed up material and liquid, I'll slowly begin to see bacteria growing on the surface, like this colony. Then I put the plate in Bardot. This is Bardot, a rapid analysis method for identifying bacteria just by shining a laser through a colony. The stage that the plate is sitting on moves along the shortest route from colony to colony and shines the laser through. There's a little camera underneath that collects the scatter pattern of the light as it bounces through the bacterial colony, which allows us to identify bacteria because each of their scatter patterns is unique and different based on how they grow on the agar surface. So Bardot is an amazing tool to rapidly identify bacteria instead of waiting months for sequencing results. Before I used this technique for endophytes, it was used strictly for identifying food-associated pathogens. I said, why couldn't I use it for identifying bacteria that I grow out of trees quickly? So it's great for my project because I'm trying to figure out all the endophytes that I can grow from Tuolumne Meadows, which are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. The field of microbial ecology has been developing to understand the big picture. We are really interested in the human gut microbiome because we know it's important to our survival. So there's a similar interest in the bacterial endophytes within conifers because they might be just as important to that conifer in harsh circumstances.
Hey, kitties!
What?
Do you want to see a nanodot?
Is it food?
No. Look! These are magnetic nanodots. They're teeny tiny piles of atoms. Little dots.
They don't look small.
Oh, they are. Check this out.
Each dot is about 1,000 or so atoms on a side. With words as small as these, you could write War and Peace on the head of this pin. And you'd still have room for Crime and Punishment and Tale of Two Cities.
Ooh, that is small, smart puppy. Even if I could read, I sure couldn't read that.
The oceans have a tremendous influence on climate. They cover over 70% of the planet and interact with the atmosphere to affect weather across a large portion of the globe. In a handful of places, the oceans and the atmosphere act in concert with land to produce cool, rainy winters and warm, dry summers. These areas are known as Mediterranean climate regions. Most of these 5 areas are on the western boundaries of continents, midway between the equator and the poles. Oceans near the coasts of Mediterranean climate regions go through their own seasonal cycles. Their surface temperatures alternate between warm and cool across the year. These coastal ocean cycles moderate more extreme climate conditions found farther inland. Each Mediterranean climate region is near a high-pressure atmospheric cell that hovers over the ocean. These cells form due to temperature differences between the ocean and the land. Their movements keep skies dry over Mediterranean-type regions in summer, but allow plenty of rain in winter. The oceans also contribute to the climate of some Mediterranean-type regions via a phenomenon called upwelling. Upwelling is the rise of cold, nutrient-rich water from the depths to the surface of the ocean. It occurs most strongly along the west coast of continents. The 4 major upwelling areas across the globe overlap with Mediterranean climate regions. In upwelling regions, predominant winds blow parallel to the coast. But the rotation of the Earth pushes the winds and surface ocean water offshore. This allows deeper, colder, and nutrient-rich water to well up near land. When sunlight hits these cold waters, algae growth skyrockets. These phytoplankton blooms and kelp forests fuel abundant populations of fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. Upwelling zones also make Mediterranean climate region waters some of the most important sources of seafood in the world. Upwelling affects climate in 2 key ways. It makes the ocean surface extra cold, exaggerating temperature differences between the ocean and land in summer. These temperature differences act to pull marine fog inland. Fog itself helps moderate local climate. In some places, it goes no further than the coast. However, the presence of river valleys and bays can funnel fog far inland. During the dry summers of Mediterranean climate regions, fog can be an important source of water in coastal areas. Some plants, such as California's redwoods, can collect the water from fog to supplement soil moisture. Marine fog and the cooler conditions it brings are ideal for crops like grapes, which thrive on hot, sunny days interspersed with cool, foggy ones. Upwelling also keeps Mediterranean climate summers rain-free by deterring the formation of clouds. In other places, warm ocean waters tend to evaporate and condense into rain-bearing clouds. But in Mediterranean climate regions, upwelling keeps coastal waters too cold to form rain clouds. This drying effect influences a far larger area than fog. Upwelling does not occur to the same extent in all Mediterranean climate regions. It is strongest along fairly straight, long coasts, as in California, Chile, and South Africa. These landforms help produce the strong, equatorward winds that drive upwelling. Upwelling is weaker where coastlines aren't perfectly straight, as in Southern California, or where inlets or water bodies are protected by landforms, as in the Mediterranean. These areas have more extreme temperatures than places with stronger upwelling. Australia is another exception. It has a seasonal rain pattern typical of other Mediterranean-type areas, but the continent is too short to establish strong, persistent upwelling winds. A current from the tropics also flows along this coastline. So, upwelling down under tends to be weaker and more variable than in other Mediterranean climate zones. Over geologic time, the moderating influence of the oceans has prevented Mediterranean-type regions from turning into deserts, as has befallen areas further inland such as the Mojave in California and the Karoo in South Africa. This has contributed to the biodiversity of Mediterranean climate areas and helped moderate levels of species extinctions. The oceans play a starring role in shaping Mediterranean-type climates. These great bodies of water help keep summers dry, winters wet, and people comfortable all year in Los Angeles, Santiago, Barcelona, and Cape Town.
The reason that I wanted to work on the western bluebirds is that they have a really fascinating social structure. But what I was interested in is looking at cooperation in situations that only rarely occur and that we, as observers in the field, might never see. So, for example, when a male is caught by a predator. In one of the video clips that I have, you can see one of my field assistants holding the male, and his female mate is swooping right over the head of the field assistant, even though the bluebirds look pretty small and harmless. When they swoop right over your head, it can be kind of startling, which I think is the point of the behavior. But we do also see other birds, so not the female mate, come in and respond in a similar way. And I'm looking at whether those are relatives or non-relatives and why they might be responding to this signal of distress. Okay, they're really cute. Are you ready? They're kind of sleeping right now. Okay, so this is a 14-day-old bluebird nestling, and you can see we've just put on all of the color bands, and all the nestlings in a given nest will have the same combination on this leg, and then an identifying band on the other leg. And these birds are a little bit underdeveloped because the weather's been really cold and rainy, so they haven't had as much food as they could have. And we also take a blood sample so we can figure out if maybe one of them had a different father than the other chicks in the nest. and their weight on this day, on day 14, is actually correlated with their lifetime reproductive success. So ones that are big now are probably going to do well for the rest of their life. So it's an important time. Yeah, so you do 10 wraps and then you coat it in nail polish. So I had to buy a whole bunch of this nail polish. It actually smells pretty bad. So what I'm doing here is making an antenna that will detect the pit tags that we put on the bluebirds' leg bands. And so the idea is that a completed antenna will go around the whole of a nest box. So every time a bird flies into the nest hole, it'll basically be going through the antenna. And so one thing I'm interested in is how bluebirds know that they're related to each other, right? And one way that they could potentially figure that out is by visiting the box of a relative when the nestlings are close to fledging, and maybe then they would learn to recognize those nestlings. But that's completely a guess at this point. And I'm just interested in putting these up there and seeing if they do even visit each other's boxes at all. We should actually not disturb it because the female's in there. Okay, then. If you want to get a really quick shot, you can do that. Bluebirds, I'm thinking, and this is my hypothesis, that it's going to be based on relatedness. So only relatives will be committing these high-cost acts, so coming in and trying to help someone in a very difficult situation. Whereas in humans, we often see non-relatives do that. I mean, I definitely got interested in the questions that I'm studying now just because, you know, I thought they were fascinating. It wasn't because I thought they would necessarily have any impact on society or anything like that, but it sort of developed to this place I am now where I think it really is applicable to studying cooperation in humans. You can often run into this type of thing where your work turns out to have implications that you never dreamed that it would when you first started on that path. So I think that's a reason that it's so important that scientists be allowed to pursue questions that they're interested in for their own sake.